Welcome back right here at 1010 on this 27th day of January. You know, a trend that's really become one that's gaining attention, those resolution trends, dry January. For so many of us, we focus on setting these goals. Maybe it's working out. Maybe for me, it's gaining weight because it's time. You know, there's so many of these things. And one of the ones that I'm taking part of this year is dry January, which calls from the abstainment from alcohol for the entire month. And hey, even longer. And if that's the case, hats off to you. You know, you're going, CJ, why are you telling me this stuff? You aren't a healthcare professional. I'm not, but the guy joining me now is on the Zoom. Dr. Ravi Johar is the Chief Medical Officer with United Healthcare. Sir, thank you for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be with you, CJ.
So this is a really interesting study that, honestly, is it surprising to you at all, really?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I think some of the numbers that came out were surprising because they were so good. Mm-hmm. But the improvement in health from dry January or even for folks who aren't quite ready to make that big jump yet, a damp January, is pretty amazing. You know,
that really is. And I mean, it blows my mind to think about some of these things because maybe my, stereotypes of what alcohol, does to myself and people really isn't that case. I mean, right off the bat, a number I wanted to kind of hit you with early on and see what your thoughts are was part of the survey, 70% of respondents said they were sleeping better. Now, I honestly thought, you go out, you have a good time, maybe you're going to sleep pretty well the next morning, maybe, but really not the case, huh?
No, actually, you kind of pass out, but you don't really sleep well because when you sleep has so many different stages, and you just never really get into that deep restorative sleep that you need. Alcohol just kind of, counteracts that in the body. So stopping the alcohol really does help you to sleep better. And then the consequences of that are pretty amazing too. About 60% of people said that they felt much better in the mornings. Goes along with sleeping better. When you feel better, you're more ready to exercise. You're more willing to get on with your day. And most people said they actually did much better at work and with their daily activities after they got a good night's sleep.
Well, it makes sense because the moment I started the show, you start going out to the concerts again in town and events and you start socializing. And I quit drinking for a long time. And, every once in a while kind of started, having a few drinks to socialize. But then you're right, I kind of noticed that my productivity was really down from where it used to be. And it seems like that's something that is an obvious one that maybe we just aren't kind of wrapping our heads around,
Well, we don't realize how much of what we do as our lifestyle or as a routine conflicts with everything else that we do. And we do all these special things when sometimes it's just the simple things that we don't think about. And, like you said, drinking alcohol in itself is not a bad thing. Having a few drinks here and there, but being able to cut it out completely is just amazing. And what the effects on the body are pretty dramatic.
Absolutely. And another thing that I saw, and the best one for me, because this hits right close to home, Dr. Johar, is that 86% of respondents, just to kind of talk about this real quick, saved money. And how many of us are starting to do that for our resolution anyway? Makes sense.
Yep, it just makes sense, but you don't think about it.
No, you don't. And
and a lot of COVID actually messed up things a lot more. There was about a 20% increase in alcohol sales.
Really?
And there was also a dramatic increase in the number of people drinking alone during COVID.
And that makes sense.
So I think, yeah.
Well, and not to cut you off, but it does. I mean, it makes so much sense. And to see really, in a different light, how the pandemic affected us in terms of, how we were, handling, maybe emotional stress and things like that. But great point. What about this? I didn't realize that 54% of respondents actually reported that they lost weight with this.
Alcohol really increases the calorie count.
Does it really?
Yep. So cutting out alcohol just in and of itself will have a dramatic effect in your weight. And then along the other things, I mean, you drink alcohol, you tend to eat a lot of stuff with it when you're drinking with your buddies and stuff like that. Yeah. It all goes together. But the folks with dry January, 54% lost weight. It's pretty dramatic.
That really is. And well, maybe I picked the wrong trend because I need to gain weight, Dr. Johar. I'm in the underweight category, and that's going to change. But when you look at these studies and you look at these surveys, what's the part that or the amount that you'll kind of take into consider? Is there ever a plus or minus with these surveys with respondents that we have to worry about maybe not being as completely honest as we'd like? How do those surveys correlate?
Well, I mean, there's always a question on bias with any survey that you take. I mean, we've seen that in some of our election polling and other political pollings and things that go on. So they're not the most accurate. But when things make sense, when they all fit, And when you get a high degree of correlation between them, then you start to think that there's something valid to it. Now, the one we're talking about is one big study that came out of in Britain, where they really started the whole dry January thing. There was an organization in England called Change Alcohol UK, and that's where it started. So it's got the biggest amount of data, so it's pretty reliable. But these same sorts of things have been shown in other studies. So it's pretty believable in this case.
Absolutely. Well, and something that, when did this trend in your mind, do you think, start really taking off? Because it seems like the last couple of years I heard more and more people start to talk about it. It seems like the trend kind of snowballed and did the snow globe effect, where we all started hearing at least somebody trying this. Do you remember when dry January really became prevalent and in society?
Yeah. I think the first time I really heard about this was about 5 years ago. But it was just, like you said, you hear a little bit about it. It's like, okay, it's one of the other fad things that's going on. But it's picked up steam. And really in the last couple of years, really during and after COVID, people have really jumped on it, because I think people are more concerned about their health. I think that's one of the good things that's come out of COVID, is people are starting to think more about their daily actions. And, you see that with everything. I mean, some people even said that that's where the Great Resignation is coming from. People are saying, hey, this is my life. It's my one shot at it. I should do it right.
You're absolutely right. And, it's really kind of just amazing for me to kind of look through this and see so many people that I know that are taking part of dry January, and seeing how they're just, overall seem so much more, in the thick of things, and, just their well-being is so much better. And just being that third party kind of overseeing things and just kind of seeing people coming in and out. I mean, the correlation is definitely there. Now, I have a question for you that is something that's kind of always stuck in my mind. And, for about 3 years, people know I completely stopped going out at all. I was a recluse and didn't, drink at home, didn't do any of that. But the moment I started kind of going out and socializing again, every time I would drink, I would almost feel a little bit sick. Is that normal?
It can be, especially depending on how much you drank or what you drank. But your body gets used to anything. So when it's not used to having alcohol, and alcohol is not a normal part of your diet, part of your life,
True. Well, it's just so for people that are kind of worried about that, because I have talked with some folks, and I won't say their names obviously because it's important to them, is they are kind of worried about, man, if I stop just completely, am I gonna get sick? Is it have some of those cases kind of come out where people maybe didn't realize they were drinking a lot more than they thought they were?
I think people don't realize sometimes just how much they're drinking. Are there effects of, well, if you've got basically an addiction to alcohol, yeah, if you stop suddenly, you're going to start having withdrawal symptoms. So in some cases, if you are a very heavy drinker, it may be important to try to wean down. And that's why I mentioned damp January for some folks.
Yeah,
it's a little bit easier.
Perfect for Alton.
So for some folks, it's better to go that way. But overall, you start to see improvement even if you cut down a little bit, and dramatic improvements if you cut down a lot. And that's one of the neat things about dry January, is that you're not trying to do it alone. A lot of people get in their mind that I want to stop, I want to cut down, but you can't. But here you've got a whole group of people around you that are doing the same thing. And it's socially acceptable not to drink.
That's what I was getting ready to say, because, I'm not going to pick on anybody, but I was out last weekend or 2 weekends ago for a little meeting, and someone goes, hey, do you want a Coors Light? And I said, no, I'm doing good. I'm sticking to this. We're already 17 days in or wherever we're at. And I said, no. Oh, come on. Are you really doing this to me? And it's like, man, for a second, I thought, do I say something? I mean, in terms of, that, I mean, it's something we kind of all have to deal with eventually, but it's just a no, and you move on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any real problem with that. And I get concerned if someone says, well, I can't have any fun if you're not drinking. It's like, what?
Right. You'd be surprised. Well, and that's something, too, that I think is with COVID, you made a great point earlier. With so much time alone, there was a lot of self-reflection, and I truly believe that was a big, reason for all of us maybe taking up this trend. Now, I got to ask you, in terms of the numbers that you saw, was there one category that you went, wow, I didn't expect it to be that high or that low? Was there one statistical category in that?
I think the biggest one was saving money.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, okay. I mean, 86% is huge. And, I guess it all goes to how much money are they spending.
Right.
But yeah, but that was the one that I think struck me the most. It was like, this is really surprising. The other one's the health benefits, I think, are not that surprising. We know that there's lots of diseases that are associated with alcohol use and certainly with alcohol overuse. And so cutting down on those, and those aren't even the ones that really showed up. These are just from people involved in the study that said, hey, I feel better, but they don't know that they're feeling better because their liver's functioning better, or they're better because all of a sudden they don't have the same high blood pressure they did before, things of that sort.
Absolutely. And that's something, I didn't realize would have such a quick turnaround to seeing those, or just feeling those results. And I feel like that, to me, is the biggest, eye opener, is going, wow, after, just 30 days, 31 days, people are actually feeling better. They aren't just mentally feeling better. They think their overall health's improving. That's incredible. Now, what is your kind of guidelines if somebody, has a birthday on January 28th and, they're only 3 days away from January being over, and I'm not going to throw any names out there, but you might be talking to them. What are some of the things that maybe we can do that you would advise on that might help us get through that final hump?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of really, really good mocktails out there, and there's recipes. And I think if you go to the UHC website, you'll even see things on there about how to make up some non-alcoholic drinks that give you a lot of the enjoyment and flavors that you'd get from alcoholic drinks. So there's some of those things that you can absolutely do. The other thing is, don't beat yourself up. I mean, if you've gone 28 days out of 31 without drinking, having a drink on one day is not going to do anything horrible to you.
You all heard it. Just because I know my text line's going to judge me on Monday, but you guys heard it from the doctor here today. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
Well, and Dr. Johar, not to cut you off, but I mean, this study, are there more health trends like dry January that are starting to come out that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, I think people are starting to see more exercising, so that's a really big thing that I think is really valuable. People are really trying to pay attention. One of the things we've seen that really dropped off during COVID was people not getting in for annual visits and just physical exams, just normal, hey, I feel good, why am I going to the doctor type visits? But they're really, really valuable. And we're starting to see those make a comeback. And I think that's a really good trend that's very positive.
Absolutely. And have you ran in or encountered maybe or just seen in the study people that have taken dry January into maybe a very dry February and March? Has this helped with people kind of getting on that track?
Actually, that's one of the real neat, great things I'm going to mention is that they've gone back and looked at these people 6 to 8 months later. Mm-hmm. And they almost all show a decrease in the amount of alcohol use. They've started drinking a little bit, but certainly much less than what they used to do. And that's just persisted over time. So I think that's the thing that shows once you can do that, you realize, hey, you know what? I had just as much fun without it. I really don't need to do that. Or I can go out and have one drink instead of 5.
Absolutely. I mean, that is something that's really awesome to hear about too, because I think so many of us, and I've done it too in the past, where you go, man, I got to, slow it down a little bit. I got to quit. And then you kind of beat yourself up to the point where you go, can I do this? And do you think just that kind of reset to your relationship with alcohol is just helping that mentality going, I can accomplish these things?
I think it's a really big thing. Once you see that you can do it, you suddenly get confidence on, okay, hey, I made that change. What else can I do? I want to gain weight. Okay, I knew I was able to stop this. I'm going to do that.
Well, you're absolutely right. And, I got to ask you, in terms of, keeping, maybe this relationship with alcohol on a better level, throughout the year, what are some ways that maybe you advise us? Because, sometimes in the summer, some of us have a little bit more fun than others. Some people are working all the time, but, it seems like not everyone has that January to be, maybe their dry month for them. Is it one of those things that maybe you suggest, like support groups, maybe have a group of friends do it at the same time? What's the best way for that?
I think that's one of the neatest things about dry January is that you have a lot of people doing it together. Mm-hmm. But I think having that in any given month or on anything, having a group of people, even one other person that you can count on, that you can say, hey, I'm really thinking about doing this. Well, I'll help you with it, is absolutely the most beneficial thing you can do. We notice that even at homes, if the husband and wife can both agree to do the same thing, it makes dieting or exercising much more fun and much easier to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, I don't know if you've ran into this, and I've thrown you on the spot on a couple of these, so I apologize in advance. But I just, for my own personal, kind of, I guess, involvement with it. What happens? What do you advise to somebody who has a friend that is going through dry January? Maybe they were maybe not drinking friends, but they'd go out, once a month together, or maybe once every other week. Has that been something that you've maybe come upon with this? Is how does the friend or how does the significant other, act around the individual trying dry January out?
I mean, I think if you just act normal,
okay,
and like you just mentioned with your friend, don't push it. Don't make them feel bad if they're trying something.
right.
Just be supportive and say, hey, that's great. The ultimate thing would be to say, I'll do it with you. But that's by far the best one. But certainly saying, hey, great, congratulations. How well are you doing? Or are you happy with it? And just going from there.
And, I am so excited about this because it makes me kind of feel a little bit better, with myself, because for a while, Dr. Johar, I really was kind of concerned. I'm glad you were on, because that question was for me. I was getting sick all the time, or maybe just not feeling too hot. And, it makes sense. But by the way, for those cocktails or mocktails that are more appropriately named, Cranberry Mule, that sounds fantastic. And United Healthcare also put up alcohol-free mimosa. I think it's great that you guys are providing us these options too, and just giving us this information in case we're curious to try it.
Absolutely. There's all kinds of information. If you think about UHC, you just think about the insurance part of it.
Right.
If you go to the UHC.com, you will see all kinds of helpful things. There's sleep hints to help you sleep better. There's amount of water you should drink, exercises, all kinds of things that are really beneficial for your health.
That is fantastic. And Dr. Johar, I really appreciate it. We're getting ready to wrap this up, but I'm going to ask you if you have any, kind of final thoughts on dry January, if you could share them with our listening audience.
I think don't limit it to January. Just try to do something. Get together with some friends and say, hey, is there something else that we all want to cut down on? Maybe there's something else that you've got that you do. Just saying, maybe we can get together and cook at home instead of going to a restaurant every night. Or maybe we cook something healthier instead of fast food. When you have a group to help support you, there's no number of things that you can come up with that you can say, hey, we can do better.
Absolutely. And you know what? Don't take it from me. Take it straight from Dr. Johar. I really appreciate your time today, sir. And thank you so much for hanging out with us in downtown Alton this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've enjoyed this a lot.
And real quick, just because I got to get this out on the air because sometimes he listens, I've never got to actually, I talk to you on the phone every once in a while over at my St. Louis job, but to finally get the doctor on the show, I love it and appreciate your time. Dr. Ravi Johar, Chief Medical Officer with United Healthcare. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely. Happy to see you again. It's good to see you, and I'd love to join you anytime.
Awesome. On this 27th day of January, a quick break. We come back with Busey Bank. They have a really cool first-time homebuyers program. We find all about that and more right after this on our Daily Show.